All right, let's jump right in. Let me ask you a question. Which battle really kicked off British rule in India? I'm willing to bet most of you are thinking of the Battle of Plassey, right? 1757. It's what's been drilled into us in every history book. But what if I told you Plassey was just the dress rehearsal? That the real show, the moment that truly handed over the keys to the subcontinent to a trading company, happened 7 years later, in a battle that hardly gets the same spotlight.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. Look at what the historian P.E. Roberts had to say. This quote, it just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? Plassey gave the British Bengal, a massive prize for sure, but Buxar gave them India. That is a huge, huge statement. And in this explainer, we're going to break down exactly why he was dead right.
So, that's the million-rupee question, isn't it? What was so special about this one battle, fought near a small town in what is now Bihar, that it completely altered the destiny of India? How did it turn a bunch of merchants into the de facto rulers of an entire empire? Well, to get to the bottom of that, we actually need to start a little earlier, with a Nawab who was just not interested in being a puppet.
You see, the whole thing starts with a classic bit of political puppeteering. The British had put a man named Mir Jafar on the throne of Bengal, but he was a bit of a disaster. He just couldn't keep up with the company's endless demands for money, for gifts, for concessions. Their greed was bottomless, so they did what they did best. They decided to replace him with someone they thought would be a more efficient manager of the treasury, his own son-in-law, Mir Qasim.
And this is where the British basically set a trap for themselves. On one hand, you had Mir Jafar. He was their guy, a total puppet. But frankly, he was incompetent. He couldn't get them the money they wanted. Mir Qasim, on the other hand, was sharp, a very, very capable administrator. He took one look at the situation and realized, hey, for my kingdom to actually survive, I need real independence. And let me tell you, the absolute last thing a company of puppet masters wants is a puppet who can think for himself.
So what's the first thing this new, clever Nawab does? He moves his capital. He gets out of Murshidabad, which was crawling with British spies and influence, and shifts to the much more defensible Munger. Smart. Second, he starts hiring foreign experts to train his army in modern European warfare techniques. Even smarter. But his third move? That was the one that really lit the fuse. He got rid of all internal customs duties. Now see, the British had these special permits called Dastaks that let them trade tax-free. They were misusing them like crazy, destroying local businesses. Mir Qasim's move just leveled the playing field for everyone, Indian and British alike, overnight.
And the British reaction? Pure, unadulterated panic. This letter from one of their officers says it all. Our servants cry aloud that their trade is ruined. You see, Mir Qasim hadn't just changed some minor tax law. He had launched a direct missile at the heart of their illegal profits. He hit them right where it hurts the most, in their wallets. He was no longer just a difficult Nawab, he was now a direct threat to their entire business model in India.
After that, things just went downhill, and fast. You had small fights, bitter arguments. The relationship completely broke down. The situation exploded in 1763 with the tragic Patna massacre, which was Mir Qasim's desperate retaliation against British provocations. And that was the final straw. The company declared war, officially threw him off the throne, and Mir Qasim was forced to flee. But he wasn't just running for his life. He was running to build a coalition. And this is the moment the story goes from being a local Bengali problem to something much, much bigger. Mir Qasim might have lost his kingdom, but he had a plan. He knew he couldn't face the disciplined company army alone. He needed backup. Big backup. So he went looking for partners. And he managed to forge an alliance of the most powerful men in North India. This wasn't about Bengal anymore. This was gearing up to be the showdown for the empire itself. And just look at the lineup he put together. You have Mir Qasim himself, obviously, the deposed Nawab of Bengal, fighting to get his kingdom back. Then he brings in Shuja Abdallah, the very powerful Nawab of Awadh, who was smart enough to see that if Bengal falls, he's probably next. And then the big one, Shah Alam II, the actual reigning Mughal emperor. For the emperor, this was a chance to finally put these upstart merchants back in their place. This was the Triple Alliance, a united Indian front against the foreign trading company.
Now, just take a second and look at these numbers. I mean, it's almost comical. The Triple Alliance marches to Buxar with an army of about 45,000 soldiers. And who are they facing? Major Hector Munro and his tiny little force of just over 7,000 men. Looking at this chart, you'd think it's a no-brainer, an open and shut case, a complete walkover for the alliance.
But you and I both know that history rarely follows the script. Battles aren't won by just counting heads. The story of Buxar isn't about numbers at all. It's a classic tale of quality versus quantity. It's about discipline, modern tactics, and the brutal efficiency of organized firepower.
Okay, so let's set the scene for the battle itself. It's October 22nd, 1764. The field's near Buxar, right on the banks of the Ganga. On one side, you have the massive, sprawling, and incredibly confident camp of the Alliance. They've got the Emperor on their side, they've got the numbers, they've got everything. What could possibly go wrong? Well, as it turns out, pretty much everything. So here are the hard facts. On that fateful day, Major Hector Monroe's small professional army stood its ground against this massive coalition, and in just a few short hours, it was all over. The result wasn't just a win for the British, it was an absolute rout, a crushing, decisive victory. The most powerful combination of Indian rulers in North India had been completely and utterly defeated.
So how in the world did that happen? Well, it really comes down to three things. 1. Disorganization. The Alliance army was a clumsy giant. It was like 3 different armies stitched together with no real central command. 2. Outdated tech. Their slow-firing cannons and cavalry charges were just no match for the rapid, devastating fire of modern muskets. And 3, and this is the big one, superior strategy. The British used this tactic called volley fire. One line of soldiers fires, kneels to reload, and the next line fires. It created a constant, terrifying wall of bullets that the Alliance army simply could not break through. They didn't just retreat, they shattered.
But look, the real victory, the thing that makes Buxar so much more important than Plassey, wasn't won on the battlefield. The ultimate prize was claimed almost a year later, not with guns, but with a pen and a piece of paper. We're talking about the Treaty of Allahabad, signed in 1765. And this treaty gave the company the one thing they wanted more than anything else in the world. It's a term you have to remember, the Diwani. What is it? Well, the Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II, now a defeated man living on their charity, was forced to sign a document. This document gave the East India Company the legal right to collect all, and I mean all, the taxes from the 3 richest provinces of India, Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa.
And we are talking about an unbelievable amount of money here. Over 3 crore rupees every single year. Now think about what that means. This wasn't just profit from selling spices anymore. This was the entire tax revenue of a kingdom. With this money, the company could now pay for its huge army, its officials, and all its future wars of conquest using Indian money. They never had to ask London for a single rupee again. It was the ultimate financial jackpot.
So let's put all the pieces together. Let's really understand why Buxar, not Plassey, was the point of no return. Plassey was a shady deal, a conspiracy won through betrayal. It gave the British influence. Buxar, on the other hand, was a fair fight, a clear military victory against the biggest names in the business. It gave them undeniable dominance.
This timeline makes it so clear. In 1757, after Plassey, they got influence by controlling a puppet. 7 years later, in 1764, after Buxar, they proved their military dominance by defeating the Mughal emperor in open combat. And then came the final nail in the coffin. In 1765, with the Treaty of Allahabad, they got political legitimacy and total financial control through the Diwani. Influence, dominance, legitimacy. That's the trifecta. That's the complete takeover. This was the legal and financial foundation of the British Raj.
And the consequences for India were just devastating. Politically, the mighty Mughal emperor was now just a pensioner living on a company allowance. Economically, this is the real start of the infamous drain of wealth from India to Britain. Administratively, it created a corrupt and cruel dual government in Bengal. And strategically, it gave the company a fantastically rich and secure base from which they would go on to conquer the rest of India piece by piece.
The great historian Vipin Chandra just puts it so perfectly. The victory at Buxar wasn't just about the money, it was about getting the political authority to rule. And they did it so cleverly by ruling in the name of the very emperor they had defeated. They became the power behind the throne, and it was only a matter of time before they just decided to kick the throne away altogether.
So, to wrap it all up, I want to leave you with this one image. If you want to understand the difference between these 2 crucial battles, think of it like this. The Battle of Plassey was the moment the British managed to get the door to India a little bit ajar. They got their foot in. But it was the Battle of Buxar that allowed them to kick that door wide open, step inside, and bolt it shut from the inside. And that, right there, is the story of how the conquest of India truly began.